I am definitely going to offend a bunch of people today with this very strong statement that there are a lot of parents failing their kids because they're making a decision to not allow their kids play a sport, either because it's not convenient or they feel they're not good enough, which is the wrong approach because they're not understanding the long-term benefits to sports. Here's the stat that should change everyone's mind. 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs were athletes. We need to talk about this. We need to understand the value in sports, and it has nothing to do with skill. Let's get into today's episode of Raising Athletes. Raising Athletes, the things that causes all dads to go bald and moms to buy minivans, empowering parents to help their kids succeed. Welcome back to Raising Athletes. This particular subject is something that I get really passionate about, and I've had lots of private conversations, and I'm really excited to bring this topic to the table and to this particular show because I think parents, and I'm not going to necessarily put 100% fault on parents here. Let me clarify because I don't want to offend everyone before they get to listen to the whole episode here. I think it's about education. I don't think that a lot of people are informed of the benefits of sports. And so what they do is they're making decisions on the limited knowledge that they have, not realizing that there are long-term benefits to a child playing sports that actually have nothing to do with the skill. And that particular stat that I mentioned earlier, 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs having played sports were athletes. That's a glaring truth that parents, we need to focus on to understand what we need to do next for our young kids. So what is it about these successful leaders and their background in athletes? What is that connection? Why is it that there's so many, 95%? That's probably the largest common trait amongst any successful leader in the world, sports and anything else, making it arguably one of, if not the most important background to have. So we need to be immersing our kids with that particular experience. Listen, parents, you're all about resume builders, right? We talk to our kids about building up your resume, having an internship, and having great grades and all these things, right? And you're right. But something else that has a place on your child's resume should be sports. And we can do a great job to provide our kids that opportunity, which gives them an edge later in life. 95%? That's how many of these Fortune 500 CEOs are athletes? Then I would figure out how to get your child into sports. It's really, really important. Now, earlier I said it doesn't matter your skill, and to a certain extent, it doesn't. I remember when I was brought on the board of an athletic association, one of the things that I was tasked with early on was to create a brand new mission statement and a sort of a 5-year plan for this particular organization. And so that mission statement that I created was creating opportunities for all kids, regardless of skill level and experience, to learn, play, and grow together. And it was transformative for this particular organization. We experienced 350% growth. So on the short term, we as an organization saw the benefits of creating more opportunities for more kids. But then what we saw was amazing. We witnessed firsthand that so many of these kids that maybe were quitting earlier or weren't given an opportunity ended up actually developing into good athletes. And had they quit or not been given that opportunity, they never would have figured out that they were actually decent at something or that they really enjoyed that particular sport. Another really great benefit that we saw on that short period of time, just that 5-year span, is that it actually built confidence in these kids. And that's something that working within a team environment can actually be nurtured. Now, there's a right and wrong way of going about it, but we did a great job in helping building confidence in all these kids. And that leads me to, one of the things that I want to talk about here, which is why? Why is it that 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs have a background in sports? And there is a list that we're going to be going through today, and one of them has to do with the things that sports actually builds in kids that have nothing to do with the skill of the sport and has everything to do with the environment of that sport. Now, there are things that sports can help build in kids, and there are experiences in a sports environment that you cannot replicate anywhere else. You're not going to learn anywhere else, and one of those things is losing. So let's get into some of these really great insights of the why. I think the why is important here because I think if anything is going to convince parents that they should be enrolling their kids into some type of sport, regardless of convenience or skill, it's going to be this list right here. So the first thing that sports do is that it develops resilience and grit. I'm a big fan of grit. I use that word quite often, actually. But yes, resilience and grit are life skills that sports teach that will translate to success. It teaches them how to handle failure, setbacks, and learning from losses. That's something that I've already mentioned in this short time that we've already had this show, and it's going to be something that I mention quite often, is sports, you get to teach a kid how to lose. You don't have an environment or a situation in any other aspect of a child's life that teaches them the proper way how to lose. However, learning how to lose is part of life. It's going to definitely be part of their career. If they get older and they're in any aspect of sales, which is a lot of jobs, you are going to lose 99% of the sales before you get the one. They need to learn how to effectively and efficiently lose, how to take a setback and have it actually turn into not just a comeback, but a success story. Being resilient and gritty and handling that failure is important. Guess what? Sports teaches that, and it teaches it in a controlled, safe environment early on. Don't you want to do that? Give your kids an opportunity in a safe, controlled environment to teach them these amazing life skills that later on they're going to experience. I don't want my kids to learn that aspect of failure when they're older, and it's very, very real, and there's big responsibilities and consequences on the line as a result of that failure. We don't want to throw them to the fire without experiencing that early on. That's one of the reasons I feel that there's so many successful leaders that were athletes, because they built that resilience. They built that grit early on that enabled them to weather that sort of situation better than people who haven't, right? We can probably all agree there. Now, the second thing that's on our list here, leadership. Oh my goodness. Leadership. Captaining maybe a team, leading by example, influencing peers. Leadership obviously is something that you use with your kids all the time. You hear it in school all the time, and they teach it from a textbook. But sports is literally a hands-on experience. They are putting themselves in a position to be a leader. Now, you don't have to be the captain of a team to develop leadership skills. You can simply be a great teammate. And that leads us to our next thing on our list here is teamwork and collaboration. Now, working with a diverse group of personalities towards a common goal. Oh my gosh, ever heard the phrase, playing well in the sandbox with others? When you are on a team, now I'm now talking about a team sports where there's multiple players on a team. I'm not talking about like tennis where it's just solo necessarily, but team sports are amazing. Team working well with others. Think about your own life. I don't know what jobs you guys have, but think about where you're working right now. You have people that you work with, people at the office, wherever it is that you're working, right? If maybe you're a construction worker and you've got a team of people building something, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And if you can learn that as a child early on, you're learning life skills that benefit you later on. Again, one of the reasons why Fortune 500 CEOs were all athletes, because they learned this early on. They had an edge over someone that was just the academic. This person now was the academic, but they also learned these incredible leadership skills early on. Next on our list, time management, balancing academics, balancing practice schedules. How about balancing personal life with all of the other things, right? Like being on a team, you have to be able to learn how to time manage. You are on a schedule. You've got your practice at this time. You got your game at this time. You got your personal training at this time. This is one of the reasons why I wrote the PGM athlete performance planner, is to actually help athletes do an even better job managing their time. So if you would like to be interested in that, check out pgmathlete.com. You can get a copy of it. But it's so important that these kids are learning good time management skills. Now, are parents involved with helping them manage it early? Yeah. Yes, they are, and that's okay. But guess what? You're leading by example. You're showing them what to do. You're forcing them to develop good time management habits. And now, when they get older and they're in college, they're much more prepared, because up until this point, they did not have to have good time management skills because everything was pretty much done for them. And there wasn't a lot of things in their life when they were younger that required time management skills. Those kids that were athletes and had to be part of a schedule and managing their time have an advantage over the kids that didn't later on and when they're in college and beyond. This is why when you've got two individuals, let's say with very similar academics, the person with the athletic background, more often than not, is going to be the one who's going to advance quicker. The statistic proves this. 95%, you can hear me say this a lot, 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs were in fact athletes. Next on our list, adaptability. Adjusting strategies mid-game, overcoming unexpected challenges, and problem solving. This is a big one. Now, another thing that I'm fortunate to have been a part of over the past, 2+ decades is I've been able to hold court with a lot of really, really successful people. I have met 2 billionaires. I've met a ton of Fortune 500 CEOs. I've got to play with even myself, Major League baseball players, professional athletes, and people who are just, leaders in their respective spaces and industries around the world. So I've got to speak with a lot of people, and by default of doing this, I've now observed common traits amongst the most successful people in the world. One of the common traits that these successful people have is their ability to problem solve faster than most people. And this is a trait that athletes develop at a young age. They're put in situations where there's a game and there's variables in the game that they cannot control that impact the outcome of the game. And because of that, they're forced to be able to be adaptable and problem solve in those situations. Guess what? By default of doing this on a regular basis, putting a child in a situation where the variables are changing that they don't control and it's affecting outcomes and there's a problem, they've got to troubleshoot it on their own, they've got to figure it out. What is that doing? It's training them to problem solve. It's just like someone who's never done the Rubik's Cube before. If they don't actually sit down and learn the algorithm and then figure it out and practice it, they're never going to be able to do it. But the more they do it, guess what? Then they could pretty much do it with their eyes closed. Same thing with leaders. These leaders that were put in situations where they had to problem solve when they were young developed that skill before everyone else. They had the advantage later on. Hence why 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs were athletes. I mean, you guys, we got to start saying this all together. It is important. Now, how can you as a parent, how can you support this particular growth? Like we just talked about and we just outlined all of these benefits, why it's important. Why is it that so many of these CEOs or athletes now are successful, CEOs, right? We've gone through this list. So now you're like, all right, I get it. It's not just about the skill. So now what about the how? How, as a parent, can I support this growth in my child? Well, number one on this list, now this is not an order of importance, right? So on this list, the first thing we'll discuss is you want to encourage healthy competition. Now, winning is great. I get it. I like to win as well. I love it when my kids' teams win. In fact, my girls play travel softball and they also play club volleyball. And my girls' club volleyball team just won the championship. It was awesome. They just won their whole tournament, and it does definitely feel good. But you want to learn from losses. Learning from losses is where growth happens. You are going to learn more during a loss in defeat than any victory lap. So you want to create this healthy competition, but you also want to have a great discussion revolving around those times where they are losing. You also want to focus on process over outcome, right? Like, I'm going to repeat that. Anytime I repeat something, it's like super important, right? So you want to focus on process over outcome. Praise efforts, discipline, and improvement rather than just results. Also, on our list here, things that you guys can do, allow your kids to face adversity. Don't shield them from tough situations. You want to help them to navigate and learn. And I get it. Like, as a parent, you are a protector and you want to make sure your kids never get hurt. That's your job as mom, as dad. And, you don't want them to ever fall down and scrape their knee. You don't want them to ever have to experiencing, anything tough because it breaks your heart. I get it. However, difficulties, adversities, challenges, disappointments can be a good thing when you're a child. You'd rather them go through that as a child to learn from, to develop some resilience and grit, and honestly learn how to overcome those challenges. This way later on they have a better chance of being successful. So it's okay to allow your kids to go through certain adversities. And I say create a healthy, teachable moment through a moment of adversity. That's where you're going to see a tremendous amount of growth in your child. The last thing that you guys can do, and there's a lot of other things, but on this particular list of what we're going to be talking about today, is you want to model resilience. How parents react to their child's sports experience, it will set the tone for growth. I'm going to say this again. How a parent reacts to their child's sports experiences sets the tone for growth. You can be one of two parents. You could be the present parent. You could be the non-existent parent. Now, I only create those two categories because I think the parent who's also non-existent is someone who's not investing into the child's future. So if you are someone who's only focused on outcome and you're really, really hard on your child and it leads them to want to quit, never do anything, they're fearful, that's why they're participating, well, I think you're not present for their future. So that's why I put you in the bucket of you're not present. But being fully present is also making sure that you are setting the great example on how you want your child to learn the trait, the skill of resiliency. That is something that you can gift them that will enable them to be successful when they get older. Life is tough, situations are tough, and you're never going to be there all of the time. That's an impossibility. You're not going to be able to shield them from every single tough moment. You're not going to be in there when they're interviewing for their next job or going for their next promotion or sitting down with the boss about earning the ability to have this big project or trying to make the sale on this really, really big client. You can't be there. You can't shield them from all of these moments of adversities, but what you can do that is give them the opportunity to learn how to do all of these things when they're younger in a controlled environment so that when they get older, they will in fact have an edge. Now, I want to leave you guys with this right here, and here's some of the key takeaways from today's episode. And really what you should be remembering here is that sports build more than athletes. They shape future leaders, problem solvers, innovators. The skills that matter most for your young child, your young athlete, resilience, leadership, teamwork. These are all assets in every single career path. Now, your role as a parent, support them, guide them, encourage them, help kids connect the dots between sports lessons and life successes. Remember, not every athlete will go pro in sports, but the skills they gain can help them go pro in life. Now, sports can shape a child's career, and they can help shape your child's growth. I want to encourage everyone to share thoughts about this topic within your sort of social media world, friends and family world, because I think this particular topic needs more conversations. We need more people, experts, people who have experienced a tremendous amount of success in this arena to encourage this type of conversation, because I've seen firsthand how many kids have quit sports way too early before they've been able to learn the important traits that we were talking about today. Now, I've come up from a place where I'm the executive director of an athletic association, and I get to sort of participate and provide programs over the past, decade now for thousands of kids. And those kids that stick with it, not because they're the most skilled or the most experienced, but because they're enjoying the process, those are the kids that are getting the most out of it. And I know for a fact it is making a deposit into the success of their future. So have this conversation online, have this conversation with your kids, and don't be the parent that encourages them or says it's okay, or maybe you are the one who's saying, you're not doing sports because it's not convenient for us. I say maybe do a reevaluation and say, okay, what is the best success that I can have as a parent for my kid? And that is setting my kid up for success, to be more successful than I ever was. That would be my dream. Well, I have done the research, and I've just shared it with you today. 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs were athletes. Guess what? My kids are going to be athletes, because now I know the traits and skills that they are learning and growing and developing is actually more than just the sport itself. It is making an investment into their future. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, Raising Athletes. If you did, do me a favor. Let's grow this community together. Share it with someone that you feel might find value. And let's just, listen, the tide rises for all ships, right? So I think that this particular community of raising young kids into amazing athletes, I think there's something here. And so let's keep on joining this conversation. Let's keep on raising amazing human beings. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Definitely find me online, and we'll see you next time on Raising Athletes. Take care.